Hey guys, it's Matt. Just a quick disclaimer before we get into this episode, and I want to just take the blame here and apologize for some of the technical issues we've had with this, bit of technical difficulties, totally on my end. I had a sound card issue with my computer. It's totally fixed now, won't be a problem in the future, but I think it's still a very good episode, and I think you guys will enjoy it. So we've done our best to repair it and recover it and do all the good stuff we could. And I think it's still a very good episode. So I hope you guys enjoy it. And just consider it a bit of a bonus because we also have another episode with Jeff, which is a lot of fun. It's a feature presentation of The Karate Kid. I know, right? Pretty cool. So without further ado, enjoy the episode and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers. Welcome to another special feature episode of Midnight Double Feature, where we take a break from the usual format from interviews and more. I'm your host, Matt, and today I got a quick question for you guys. What does Eye of the Tiger, The Bachelor, The Karate Kid, and the 80s raunchy comedy film Hot Moves have in common? I'll tell you who. Welcome to the show, actor, composer, and keyboardist from the hit band Survivor, Jeffrey Bryan. Jeff, how you doing today, mate?
Hey, Matt. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Pleasure to have you here. How you coping with the whole COVID situation and stuff?
Yeah, coping is a tough word, man. Well, for a musician, it sucks for everybody. I certainly wouldn't want to take anyone's, it's bad for everybody. So it's tough. We're not playing. I'm not traveling like normal. Obviously, I'm home a lot. So yeah, the things we love to do, we're not doing. So it's pretty obvious.
I can imagine, man. So, but thanks for staying with us today. So let's kick off with just talking about how you get started with all this stuff. So, from my understanding, you start off before Survivor, before a lot of these films you were in. You started off as a musician, right?
Yeah.
And you sort of stumbled your way into acting.
Yeah, exactly. I was always a musician. In fact, I never wasn't. I always started. I started out, wanting to be a singer, really, and acting kind of just came into my path. And it wasn't something I was pursuing. I just was in sort of a right place, right time kind of thing. And someone saw me I was actually on the Merv Griffin show, performing a song. Merv Griffin, for those that don't remember. He's kind of like Johnny Carson's counterpart back in the 80s. It was a pretty big show, national show in America. And I was on that show because I was in another show at the Roxy on Sunset every weekend, performing in a show called the Too Short for Primetime Players. It was a group of kids that were putting on a variety show for birthday parties at the Roxy, no less. And it got kind of newsworthy, and I guess, some of the news channels picked it up, and next thing you know, they came in and wanted to do a little segment on the show, and that's how I got on Merv Griffin. And from there, a manager suggested that I get an agent. He wanted to hook me up, and I'm like, well, I'm not an actor. And he says, yeah, but you are now, if you want to be. And I'm like, okay. So they sent me out on interviews, and Karate Kid wasn't the first movie that I actually landed. I was in a feature film called Hot Moves, which actually filmed prior to me even knowing about Karate Kid. But yeah, it was a weird year. It was a lot of stuff I was doing that had nothing to do with playing music and kind of fish out of water kind of thing. But, it's part of who I am now. But back then it was like, okay, we'll give this a shot,
That's cool, man. I actually checked out Hot Moves just to prepare for all this.
Sorry.
It was interesting,
Don't hold it against me.
No, you're right. I found it interesting that the storyline for Hot Moves, for those who aren't aware, just think American Pie. I think just think even Superbad. It's a very similar concept, but way before all that.
Yeah.
So I found it really interesting that this type of film was being made way before I even realized. Just the concept that a bunch of guys want to lose their virginity at the end of high school. Yeah.
Coming of age.
It's pretty cool, man. I got to ask, that was you in the the scene where they try and pick up a prostitute. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was shot. Oh, you mean in the DeLorean?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a cool scene. That actually was shot a year later.
Really?
That's why I look so damn different. I guess they didn't have a way. I don't know what the hell they were thinking. It was such a strange. It was just a strange deal, man. Those guys had. I don't think they ever made movies before. I don't know what the story was, but they decided they needed Joey. That was my character. I guess they decided they needed him to have an episode of trying to get laid again for some reason, and he was daydreaming on the beach. All I know is I got called from my agent a year later. Was it a year? It was almost a year later, yeah, because the Hot Moves came out, I want to say in '84. So, yeah, whatever. Anyway, yeah, weird scene though. It was fun.
I can imagine. I can imagine, man. Yeah, so like with a film like that, so you just get your agent just pretty much tells you out of the blue, we got you this comedy gig. Had you done any acting before that at all?
No. In fact, Hot Moves was the very first time I was on a set.
That's crazy. So your first time on a set, you're like one of the main protagonists in this this big film. That must have been like pretty intimidating for you, right?
Yeah. Because you should have seen me at the interviews. I mean, I would go on the interviews for the jobs, the casting calls that my agent was sending me on, and I literally just didn't. I was like looking at the scripts and the lines, and I was like, I don't know. I guess I'll read them. I mean, the thing is I wanted to play them. I wanted to sing them or something. I really had no experience as an actor. Now, here's the interesting thing, though. At that point in time, I was about 16 or 17, and I had already been on stages for years. I'd performed for thousands of people by then. I wasn't like embarrassed or unsure of myself in front of an audience. I was always by then I was pretty comfortable, but I was doing something that I wasn't sure I was doing correctly, the acting. And so that's what gave me a little anxiety. It was like, with music, I know what to fall back on.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. I studied music. I get it. With acting, it was sort of just this big mystery, read these words and act like silly. But,
I've always been interested.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're right. I've always been interested. Like, I feel like there's always been this relationship between musicians and acting. Like, you see a lot of actors who are musicians, a lot of musicians are actors. Like, why do you think that relationship exists? Is it a performance thing?
Oh, no. It's because, in my opinion, music, acting, painting, poetry, whatever you want to do, it's all the same thing. It's all communication. It's all, having a passion about something and then wanting to express it to another entity, another person, an audience, whatever. And so the medium might be music, the medium might be the acting, the medium might be painting, but the message is the same. So they're not that different in that sense. And so they kind of intertwine. And when you're on stage, I'm not necessarily exactly the same person I'm on stage as I am when I'm just hanging out. There's a little bit of, you're. I wouldn't say I'm a character, but you tend to be a little bit bigger than you are in life, as you need to be on stage. And so there is some acting and singing and performing are very intertwined. They're similar in that way, in my opinion.
Nah, I could totally see that. I think I agree with you too. So you go from that to the Karate Kid, where you play Billy, who is like sort of one of the friends type thing. I noticed you're in the scene on the beach, where the first fight happens. I know you're towards the end as well, when they're like celebrating the victory and stuff.
Right.
These are some iconic scenes, man. Did you realize like what you were getting involved in at the time?
Not even close. It was when I got that gig, it was a 2-week job.
Right.
They called me up. Actually, it was very interesting. I actually met John Avildsen, the director, who is famous for Rocky. He was the original Rocky director. He was a famous guy. I mean, very talented and extremely sought after director at that time. And he was actually doing the casting himself, which was unusual. Usually you go through a casting agent. So I actually had met him and did an on-screen interview with him, and then I went home. It was no big deal. And I got a call saying I got the job, but it's only 2 weeks. And I said, oh, okay, great, whatever. And when I got onto set, or we didn't go to set. Actually, I went to a couple rehearsals first, and we met the cast, and everybody got to meet each other. And at that time, I was presented. My agent had called me back and said they actually want to keep you on for the whole year, or I shouldn't say year, the rest of the year.
Wow.
Which was for the entirety of the filming. And so I was excited because I thought, well, I may actually have a part in this movie. And I kind of did until I got to my dressing room and noticed that, scenes were redacted, lines were taken out. And it wasn't just me. There were 4, I think there were 5 of us in what we call Freddie's gang. Freddie, if you remember, Freddie was played by Israel Warby. He was the character that Daniel LaRusso met in Reseda when he first moved to Reseda in the apartment building.
He's like a neighbor or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of like a neighbor, happened to go to the same school, pretty believable. And his friends were me and Frankie Avalon Jr., Tom Fridley, and Ken Daly. So the 5 of us were Freddie's gang. And we actually had scenes. There were more palling around with him than what actually ended up getting filmed. They changed a lot of stuff, obviously. And it makes sense. I mean, you need to make a 90-minute movie. You got to boil it down somehow. And I guess there were some relationships that the producers didn't feel that they needed to explore. So I ended up sitting around a lot.
That's interesting because in the final product, anyone who's seen The Karate Kid, and we're talking about like what some may call the good one, by the way.
That's right. Oh, there is another Karate Kid? I wasn't aware of that.
Oh man. Yeah, so that mostly focuses on like the oh god, what's his name? John Ralphio, is it?
Oh, Ralph Macchio.
Oh, my screen. Yeah, Ralph Macchio. Yeah. Where did I get John from? Ralph Macchio, yeah. His character, he's got this like the love interest. And,
right.
There's his neighbor. But outside of that, he seems really isolated from like a lot of like high school and,
right.
and everyone else around. It's really interesting to hear that they originally had a lot more stuff with him being more social with that.
It's interesting because what they wanted, at least from my recollection, is John Avildsen. He wasn't an accident that they had him on this film. They were trying to mirror a Rocky story. So there's a lot of people that worked on The Karate Kid that were working on the original Rocky series. So it wasn't an accident that some of the crew and some of the people that were involved in the movie were the same. And I guess John wanted an atmosphere of adversarial kind of atmosphere. He wanted people to feel threatened by the people that they would be threatened from in character. So from a very early stage, they actually sequestered Ralph, Daniel LaRusso, the character, and he didn't have Ralph intermingle with anybody on the set because he didn't want it to feel like they were friends in any way. He wanted them, so the fear in his eyes, he wanted it to be real.
Right.
And so that's probably what had a lot to do with the decision to have him not be as social as the script had called for originally.
Wow, that's interesting. Bit of an inside scoop there. That's interesting. Tell me about this. Like, so after The Karate Kid, big success.
Yeah.
They went on to do some sequels. I know recently they brought it back for this Cobra Kai series.
Oh yeah.
Was there ever any intention on their end or your end to have you be involved in any way, or that group of friends or anything like that?
Well, not as of yet. I mean, they're still getting to all the main characters. I mean, I think Elizabeth Shue has yet to come back. She might be coming back in the 4th season. There's talk about it. I don't know if they agreed on it or not. But I know that there's a lot of people that want to come back. I talked to Israel. I'm still friends with some of these guys. And it's funny because in the final analysis, when the film was edited, Freddie, he got more screen time than I did, obviously, FaceTime. And so he's somewhat known. He's been a couple of the Comic-Cons with them, and I'm not known. I mean, they know my voice. You really pick fine friends to hang around with, Freddie. But it was an off-screen line. At the time, it wasn't. It was shot with me center stage saying that. But it made sense the way they edited it. But because of those decisions, I'm not necessarily a character that I think anyone would, well, be invested in. You know, there's just, who am I? I'm just a dude. So probably not likely, but you never know. I mean, they brought back a lot of the Cobra Kai guys, some of them that didn't have any real parts. They were just visually there. And you know, they're trying to stay true to the original. So they might, if they bring Freddy back, yeah, he's going to have a bunch of friends, and maybe they'll have me. I don't know. Let's make it happen. Let's start a petition.
We're starting a petition where we're going to take this as far as we can go. We're going all the way to Hollywood with this.
There we go.
You hear it here first. Okay.
Bring Billy back.
Bring Billy back.
Who's Billy? Bring him back.
The campaign starts now, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man. So while all this is going on, and before you joined Survivor, which has a really interesting link to all this, and I'll get to that soon. But so 1984 seems like a really busy year for you. You've got both Hot Moves and The Karate Kid coming out.
Yeah.
Very similar time almost.
Right.
After that, it seems like you started to focus back more on music. Is that right?
Well, by the time, you got to remember, when the films come out, it's already a year past. So, you know, because there's editing and post-production, and then they figure out what the time is, the best time to market it. So the time between the final scene is shot and the time that the movie's out can be a year, can be longer. You never know. So after 83, when The Karate Kid came to a close for me, I was actually relieved because I was being paid fairly well to basically wait, just hang out. We might need you, the kind of thing. And when you're 18 and you're hungry to work and you're not doing the thing you love, which was music at the time and still is, you start to, you know, develop a sense of anxiety about, I got to get out of here. I got to move on. I got to get out of this contract. And maybe that was naive of me, but that was the reality of my world at the time. So when Karate Kid ended, I did everything in my power to you know, audition for bands, put bands together, get back into, you know, singing and recording. I hadn't been doing that for at least a year or so, and kind of feels like lockdown, like now. But that one was not intentional, and yeah, so it was. I felt like I was losing ground. And so I got back into music. And to be honest, acting wasn't something that I was missing. It wasn't like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to act as much. I didn't really care at that time. You know, it was, to me, acting was sort of a means to an end. It was something that was kind of handed to me in the sense that I wasn't looking for those jobs. And and I actually worked quite a bit. There were other jobs throughout the year and a half or so. There were some walk-ons or some TV shows I was on, you know, some shows that don't exist anymore, you know, with different actors and stuff. And there were other daytime shows that I appeared on. So, I mean, there's a lot of work during that year that had come through, but, you know, it was sort of par for the course, I guess, at that time. It was like, yeah, all right, I'll take that job. And then when it was over, I was like, I got to get back into music. So that's how I just turned the page, basically.
Got to follow your passions. Yeah. Around this, are you playing keyboard around this mostly, or are you singing or guitar?
Yeah, back in those days, I played guitar and keyboards. Those were my instruments, but I never considered them to be. I didn't necessarily take them on stage with me. I used them for recording and writing, and I saw myself as a songwriter, singer, mainly a singer. You know, that's what I was pursuing. And all my original bands, it was me at the helm, you know, doing the main singing. So that's where I was at. Keyboards kind of crept into my life in a more professional way through the years. I realized how much I loved it, how much keyboards were a part of my ability to express my music. And I just sort of fell in love with the keyboard more and more as I got older. And now people don't even realize that I'm a singer sometimes, or that I had this history. They you know, I'm hired as a keyboard player, you know, which is, you know, great. That's fine. I don't care. I love it.
Is it around then you start getting into composing, or how'd that come
No,
about?
I was composing the whole time. That came about because when I was 12 and 13 years old, and I was singing, you know, My Sharona, you know, to the record, you know, I realized that, well, this is fun and everything, but I want to sing my own song.
Yeah.
These are other guys' songs. I had a big opinion of myself at 12, I got to write my own song. So I said, Dad, I need a guitar. So got me guitar lessons. And, I did okay. I still play guitar in bands and stuff, and I'm an okay guitar player, but it didn't resonate with me until I discovered the piano. And that's when I realized that songwriting made a whole lot of sense on a piano for me. All the keys were here. Everything was laid out for you. I already knew how to read and write music from the years of studying, classical harmony. So I kind of knew what I was doing. I wasn't necessarily a pianist, but it didn't take long for me to understand what my way around a piano. It's a shame that I didn't discover that earlier, perhaps, because that would have been my first thing. But I was writing forever. I mean, as soon as I could sing and realized I could sing my own songs, I had to learn how to write songs. And so I started doing that from the very beginning.
That's cool, man. That's art, I guess. Hey, I'm curious now. So, well, first of all, let's get into like what's kind of crazy. So before you joined Survivor, you have another connection to them. So their song "Eye of the Tiger," which was in Rocky, they also created another song which became like the theme song of the Karate Kid. And in the music video, you even seem to have a little cameo in there as well.
By virtue of...
How does that happen?
I don't know. That's a crazy universe, man. I have no clue. Here's the thing. Survivor obviously had Moment of Truth, which I'll give you this story in a little bit. There's a story around that song that's kind of interesting.
Okay.
But prior to that, as everyone knows, the Eye of the Tiger was just a monster hit for them, monster hit for everybody involved in that. And then, of course, they had Rocky IV with Burning Heart, and they had Karate Kid. So they had 3 movie songs. But what's interesting is that when you know the story and the back end of it, it's not as crazy as it sounds, because as I alluded to earlier, a lot of the people that were involved in the whole Rocky institution were being pulled into the Karate Kid world because of Jerry Weintraub. And Jerry Weintraub was the executive producer of the Rocky series and Karate Kid, and among other things. I mean, he managed David Bowie, and this guy was an amazing musical and entertainment mogul. And at the time, he wanted the success. He was coming off the heels of the success of Rocky and wanted Karate Kid to echo that kind of vibe, but in a martial arts kids sort of vibe, obviously. And so there were so many similarities. Now, Bill Conti, who some of you might remember, he was a composer. He wrote all the music for Rocky. Gonna fly now, da-da-da-da-da. He wrote all that. That was his stuff. And he was also the one writing the music for the Karate Kid soundtrack. So all the music that isn't bands and songs, the background music, that's Bill Conti. But he wrote a song with Peter Beckett from Player, Baby Come Back, that band Baby, that had the hit Baby Come Back, Player. And he wrote a song called Moment of Truth. So Bill Conti and Peter Beckett wrote the song Moment of Truth, and Karate Kid. And Survivor had nothing to do with that song. They were asked, sort of obligated,
right?
Hey, we want you to, you just came off Rocky. We got another movie for you. They're like, well, great. We got tons of songs we can give you. No, we got one for you. And somehow they were contractually or obligated or felt obligated that they reluctantly recorded Moment of Truth. What's interesting about that is, jump 30 years later, and I'm in the band, and I'm explaining this to them that, you guys play rock, you play the theme to Rocky, you play the theme to Rocky IV. There's other songs that you guys play. Why aren't we playing Moment of Truth? What's the deal? It's Karate Kid, and I was in the Karate Kid. And they're like, oh, we didn't write that song. Don't ask again. We're not playing it. I'm like, holy shit. So that's the story with that. It's interesting because that was, for your Survivor fans out there, Jimmy Jamison, he joined the band after Dave Bickler left for throat troubles after the whole Karate Kid, the Rocky 3, Eye of the Tiger situation. After that tour, he left. They needed another singer. They brought in this guy, Jimmy Jamison, who ended up going on to, record amazing, the whole Vital Signs and Beyond. The Search Is Over, Can't Hold Back, High on You, all these great songs. That's all Jimmy. they figured, well, this isn't our song, but we need to audition the singer, so we'll throw him in the studio on this song. His first song they ever sang with him wasn't a Survivor song.
Damn.
It was Moment of Truth.
So,
and yeah, go ahead.
yeah,
Sorry.
so Moment of Truth, that's not really a common thing in a Survivor set list now, I would say.
It's not only it's not common, it doesn't exist.
Oh, wow.
They've never played it live. It doesn't exist on an actual Survivor record. It does exist on a greatest hits record.
Right.
Like a compilation record, but not on an actual release. It's not on When Seconds Count. It's not on Too Hot to Sleep. It's not on any of their records. They don't, for as far as they're concerned, it was just something they had to do.
Wow. That's crazy to think.
Can you imagine that? What a great opportunity. Just something you had to do.
Yeah, there are probably so many.
Theme song.
There's probably a bunch of Survivor fans out there who were introduced to the band because of that song through Karate Kid.
Yeah. I think it'd be awesome to play a medley of all the movie tunes that they have.
Yeah.
I think Is It Love was in a movie. I think it was I can't remember which movie it was in, but there's a bunch of songs that have been used in films. Obviously, those 3 songs, they're theme songs, so you definitely want to hit those. But yeah,
So how do you end up joining this band? Seems like that's crazy, right?
Well, it is. It's nuts because at the time that I was introduced to them, I didn't. You're gonna call me crazy, man. I didn't even know that Moment of Truth was them.
Oh, wow.
It wasn't that I didn't know. It was just that it wasn't on my radar. I wasn't thinking about it. And I've been playing in LA. I've been playing in tons of bands and performing. I know a lot of musicians. It's not surprising that, I'll get a call or something that somebody needs something. And so one day I just got an email from them, from their management, and with one sentence, it said, "Would you be interested in playing keyboards for the band Survivor?" And that was it.
Wow.
It wasn't signed or anything. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So I eventually answered the email, and sure enough, it was they were interested in meeting with me. So I don't have a great story about that. That's just what happened. It was just one of those kind of great days, that just sort of came across my email.
It sounds like your career has had like a lot of moments where someone just happens to see you and they're like, oh, let's put that guy on a stage. Let's put that guy on TV.
Yeah.
Let's get that guy in a movie. Yeah.
It looks that way based on the things we're talking about for sure. But I don't think it's that different from probably a lot of people. I mean, when you're out there and you're doing something and you're passionate about it, hopefully people see you and eventually one thing leads to another. But there have been a lot of those, as you would call, serendipitous type of events that have taken place in my world, and I can't explain them. I mean, to be part of the Karate Kid is great. To be part of Survivor is amazing. And to be part of the original, marketing of that, and then to be in both bands is, I mean, if you said that was going to happen to me, I'd be like, okay, well, I want what you're smoking, because it just doesn't seem something likely, It's just crazy.
Yeah. That's certainly an interesting career with these two very different things, years apart, and they're so well connected. Like, and I also want to acknowledge, like, for you to be discovered that way, so much practice, so much like dedication that leads up to those moments. You're not going to get discovered and picked up if you haven't put in that work, I imagine. So, I mean, you're not going to be asked to go from A to B if you're not ready, So obviously I was ready for those moments in my life. Or we wouldn't be talking about them. But I'm very, very. I don't even know how to intellectualize it. It's like, that's so bizarre. At 18 years old, I was sitting on that set in Karate Kid thinking, when the hell is this thing going to fucking end? Because I need some work. Wow.
And then it ends, and I'm like, on my own, broke, and I'm looking for work, and I realize I'm not going to find any work acting anymore. So why don't I just do what I love to do if I'm not going to get paid for something? And I go back into music, and 30 years later, I find I'm right back where I started, but in a music sense. So I finally righted that ship, from 1984.
Wow. That must be like Survivor, huge band. Eye the Tiger, super iconic song. If you were like, it's probably in a lot of people's top tens even.
Probably.
You must have been like, was that intimidating to jump in that sort of band? Like, what's that like?
There is an intimidation factor, but it's kind of like, I mean, I guess you could kind of like a pilot of a plane. It's like, I mean, sure, you might see a lot of dials and buttons and things, but you do your job, So once you get past that, the thing for me is that I kind of see myself with respect to Survivor as sort of a steward of history. I mean, they have a 40-year history, and these songs are beyond iconic. I mean, The Eye of the Tiger is part of the is an icon in our society, and it doesn't even mean just the song. It's about strength and everything else. Excuse me, and people use it for all kinds of things. So it's ingrained in our society. And I kind of look at, and some of their other songs, High on You and Can't Hold Back. I mean, these were monster songs of the 80s. So when I get up there in front of an audience and I'm playing these songs, I do my best to try to be as respectful to the material as I can, so that when they're there, the people that are in the audience are receiving what they hear as they remember it. And then that's my job, with respect to Survivor. And so when I think of it in those terms, I don't feel like I'm me necessarily. I'm like I said, I'm there as a way to keep their brand intact and try to maintain that what people in which people remember, and that's the gig, But to answer your question, as far as intimidation, I think everybody goes through a little of that. There's as soon as we started playing, though, I wasn't really that concerned about that.
That's so cool, man.
Sure.
I just want to move on a little bit to something else I found kind of interesting seeing through your work. So you've composed for a lot of reality TV. I've seen The Bachelor, New Price is Right, Porn Stars. You've been doing this. You've been in the game for a bit. Can you tell me, like, let's say I'm some hotshot director, producer from like one of these type of shows. What is your process? What is the process like to compose music for like a program like these?
Well, if you're specifically talking about like reality shows, they use the songs. I mean, they probably use 100 cues in a 20-minute show. It's wall to wall music. Boom, boom, boom. There's almost no time when there's no music. So it's a little different than scoring a movie. They're collected. Basically, they're pulling from a library of music that you may have given them, and so it's really up to the editor and the director to determine what they want to use for that emotion at that time. That's not where the creativity is. On the film side of things, and the short films and the films and things like that, that's a whole different process.
Yeah,
because that you're actually working with a script, and you're working with a director and a vision and a sonic palette that you're trying to help push the story along. So to answer your question, with respect to reality shows, and there's a lot of stuff on the internet and stuff like that, that kind of stuff is mostly just stuff they pull from my library or whatever.
Right.
So there's not a lot
are they asking for, we need a sound for like a positive thing, we need something for negative,
exactly.
or do you have a pre-made library that they're pulling from, or you're making them tailored to them?
Yeah, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. They might want something that has. They might even give you artists that they we want something that kind of sounds like this, or somebody that like this song or that song. They don't want you to rip it off, but they want the spirit of it. And,
it'll be like a temp track and use as a reference to
it's called inspire. A temp track. Yeah. And a lot of times they'll fall in love with that temp track, and it's really hard to get them away from it, because they've edited to it and everything before you show up,
When you're doing a film, do you find it, and you're composing for film, are you sitting in the studio with the director and their director's like, I want to sound like this? Or do you normally get a lot more freedom where like you sort of do something and then they come back and what's that process like that?
It's honestly, it's different for everyone, meaning everyone you work with has a different, and every movie too. So it's probably different from movie to movie. So it just depends on what their process is and how involved in music. If the director's a real music guy, he's probably going to want his hand in the music a little bit more, and there'll be more discussion. Other times they're like, here's the script, here's a treatment of the film, and here's a little clip. Give me something, so you never know. It just depends on who you're working with.
What are some of the challenges you'll have when composing for a film?
Yeah.
I know it's a very open question, but.
Well, I think the biggest challenge is, like I said, it depends on who you're working with. But if you're working with one of those directors that isn't as hands-on with the music, you're sort of have to bring whatever his vision is and whatever the story is to life without as much input. And so you're hoping that what your instincts are and how you feel. I mean, you can look at a scene without music on it or dialogue, just the dialogue, and it can go in so many directions. You could see a very, very intense, a scene that's really intense between two actors, and if there's happy music underneath it, it completely changes the meaning of the scene. If there's like some ominous sounding strings underneath a conversation, all of a sudden that conversation is taken on a different meaning. And because of that, your decisions and your intuitions about how you think that script is going has got to be in line with what the director wants. And that's probably the biggest challenge. The interpretation can be in so many different ways.
Is it a very different process from, I imagine it would be, but like if you were to compare it to, say, writing original music where, lyrics, verse, chorus, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Is there much overlap there, or is it like a complete different skill set?
There's only a little bit of overlap. There's a lot more freedom in a film because you don't have to worry about that chorus coming up in a minute. You're at 45 seconds, you can go on as long as you need to. The thing about music in films is that the music is there to support the story. So there's no constraints on the music. Whereas in a pop song, which is what I'm most familiar with, the art, the craft is trying to figure out how to say an entire movie in 3.5 minutes. So it's a different kind of challenge. And they don't really overlap too much.
And you've been writing, I've noticed you've been writing a lot of original music as well. Do you want to talk about that and like what you've been working on? And
yeah, sure.
And some of your original tracks?
With regard to that, I've been writing, obviously, we've been talking about it forever.
Yeah.
and as in the last 10 years, I've been spending a lot of time on the road, a lot of time with other musicians, a lot of time playing in other people's bands, including Survivor. And so I haven't really spent as much time on me, which is okay. I mean, I'm happy to do both. And with this COVID situation, I'm forced not to be able to go out on the road, not be able to work. So I decided to take a look at some of my, some songs that I hadn't completed, write some new stuff. And so lately I've been working on my own record at home. I've just decided to finish some things that I haven't been getting around to. So I'm kind of excited about that.
Does that mean we should expect an album coming out soon, or?
Yeah. In fact, I have a first release on August 27th. I think I'm doing a Spotify release and an Apple Music release. It's just one single, but I'm going to have a whole album's worth of material that's just going to be released.
That's awesome. Do you want to talk about that track?
Yeah.
Like what we can expect? Like what's it called? Like let us know what's coming.
Yeah. The song's called Count Me In. You can find it on Spotify on August 27th. Or as well as Apple Music and all the other Google everywhere else. I can even play a snippet of it if you want to hear it.
Sure.
I don't know if it'll come through or not, but.
Too much time sitting on my hands. Wonder how the rest of the world can. Seems like I'm the only one that's trying. Maybe I just don't understand. All my plans just sink in the sand. Am I always gonna be marking time? I got nowhere left to go. I got no one else I know. So if you're leaving, kindly end. It's not like I haven't tried so many
That's awesome. Thanks for that little clip there. That's really cool.
Thanks, man.
What are you sort
And
of
that's just like the beginning of it.
yeah?
So
What are you sort
there's
of
a bunch of songs like that.
yeah,
Oh, sorry.
awesome. No, sorry, you're right. You're right. So looking forward for that release, as well as the rest of the record as well. What are your sort of inspirations that you're pulling from for these sort of like tracks?
All my inspirations typically when I write songs are usually just things that are affecting me at the moment or things that I've, have thoughts about, you know. So, that particular song, it wasn't written for this lockdown. I actually wrote it a few years ago. I just didn't finish it. And it works kind of well. I mean, that particular song is basically, you're just tired of being in one place, so to speak, and want to get the hell out. It's time to change your atmosphere, trying to change your environment. Sometimes just by changing the furniture changes that environment, and just changing things around gives you a different perspective. And that's what that song's kind of about.
For sure. Something I've always thought is like, if you're in a rut, it's amazing how just like cleaning your room or like if you just
Totally
move your bed around in the bedroom, just a new perspective of just like even the little things can really go a long way.
It doesn't take a lot. I mean, sometimes it can just be like you said, just putting the bed in a different place, and suddenly you see life differently. Like I'm going to step back from the edge now, from the ledge. I feel better now. I move my bed. I can survive another day.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking about moving this desk around. But anyways, I feel like we're really getting some like those positive notes, which is a really nice way to close out on. But I think a nice way to like go with that is for any aspiring musicians out there, or maybe even actors or creatives. Do you have any advice that you could give from all your years of experience that we could draw from?
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, first of all, I think that people that are drawn to the entertainment industry that want to do, they're usually passionate about something. And the thing is that when it comes to art, when it comes to music or acting or any kind of art, the bottom line here, it's always about communication. That's really all we're trying to do. We're just trying to, I have an idea, I want to express it, and I want you to receive it. And then that completes the circle. And if you're true in what you're saying, meaning if you believe in what you think, you're passionate about it, and you have something to say in a that's not manufactured, that's important. And if you feel that you have something like that, then develop a skill to be that vehicle to do that. And if it's music, do the music. The thing is that the way we create artwork in the era that we're in now with all the technology, and the way that we created artwork, and I'm primarily music, 30 years ago, hypothetically, is so different, man. It's really different. Back in the early days of, making records, you needed to know how to play an instrument. You needed to know how it worked. And so that, because it cost so much money and time in a studio, you couldn't screw around. You had to get it right. So it forced you to become a good musician. And by learning that instrument good enough to be accurate, you actually became a better singer, a better songwriter, a better whatever. And so it created better musicians. Nowadays, I'm not suggesting that we're not making good music, but the way we approach music is very different. People are like, well, I got a computer that can play piano for me. I got this, I can do that. I got this. And so at the end of the day, what I think is happening is people are becoming creators, but not necessarily musicians. And there's a kind of a different, it's a different approach to making music. And I'm not suggesting that you can't get to the end result, a good piece of music, if you're not a great guitar player, hypothetically. But I'm just saying that there needs to be, don't forget about the organic roots of why this works or why that works, because it helps to, I think in the end, we end up creating things that, we probably have created more stuff in the world in the last 10 years than's ever been created in the history of mankind, in terms of, just look at the internet, just gigs and gigs and gigs of stuff. Is it all good? Probably not. And we'll probably look back on this period and go, what the shit was that? Because, not everybody's an expert. The word expert is not even used anymore, because really, if you got a computer and you've read an instruction manual, you've now an expert. But but as far as advice goes, I would say don't fall into that. Obviously, these tools are there for you. They're tools. Use them, but also get some skills. Really figure out what it is you do best and hone in on that and really become good at it, because that will create better stuff, you know? And then you're not as concerned about, you know, just being like everyone else. You can just be yourself.
That's some good advice. Thanks for that. And so to close us out, you got anything to plug? Tell us, where can we find you?
I just did.
There's the song. Yeah, like a social media, website, or anything we should be checking out?
Yeah, the best place to find me is start with my website. It's jeffreybryanmusic.com, spelled JEFFREYBRYAN, the word music.com. All my social media stuff is there. You can find me on Facebook and whatnot, but the website's probably the easiest way to go. Plus, I got clips up there, and you can hear music and see stuff. So that's probably the best way.
Exciting stuff. Be sure to check it out, as well as Count Me In, coming out soon. So I think it's going to be it for today at Midnight Double Feature. Jeff, thank you so much for being part of this. It was total blast hanging out with you.
Oh, thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I hope to maybe have you again sometime, or some to that effect.
Would love to.
Yeah, and so for everyone else listening, thanks for joining us. As always, be sure to find us Facebook, Instagram, wherever at Midnight Double Feature. And be sure to join the After Party, our Facebook community group as well, for exclusive stuff and memes and whatnot. I'm Matt, and this is Jeff. Thanks for joining us. Laters.